Let's go to Panama City and talk to Connor. What's up, Connor? How we doing?
Hey, John. Thank you, Jenna, and the rest of the team for taking my call today. How are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding, and I appreciate you being on the show, man. So what's up? How can I help?
Yeah. Yes, I guess I want to start off with a little bit of background on this one. So Ken and I had a conversation last week. The question I'm going to ask you kind of stemmed from the conversation he and I had over employer issues that I'm having now. Really is on flexibility on my work schedule in a little bit, and then positional limitations for growth, promotion, things like that have been happening over the last few months, ever since we've had some turnover in the organization. So bottom line, I'm helping raise a child that's not mine genetically or adoptively, but I do have some in loco parentis stuff against it. So I do have some responsibility-wise in the legal scale for her.
Why?
A little bit of background on that situation.
Yeah.
This is my ex-fiancee's child. So her and I are not together. I'm kind of doing a single parent duty thing over here. The girl's 1.5, and she's adorable. Love her to death. But my employers have had some issues with me.
Let me stop right there.
Yeah.
Why are you involved at all in this?
So her and I, we split up a few years ago when we didn't see eye to eye on our values. They didn't align. We dated for years. And she went up to Georgia after we split up, got pregnant. The guy, after 4 months of pregnancy, dipped out, got out of the picture. She came back down to Florida, and I found out about it through a mutual friend of ours. And I come from a family background where I was raised by a single parent. My mother took off when I was very young, and I know what kind of impact that can have on a child. And I feel like God put me in a place now to where I'm able to support both mentally and financially for the child on my side here. But being able to have, a dual parent household there is awesome. Even if we aren't together, it's still good to have two parent figures in my eyes.
I think you're setting everybody up for an amount of heartbreak that is going to be devastating on the Richter scale.
Mm.
And here's why. You're playing dad.
Mm-hmm.
You're performing dad. And you're not. This girl's always going to wonder why her daddy left her. This little girl's always going to be grateful for this man who just literally materialized and helped with groceries and diapers, but also allowed mom to punt the responsibilities of raising a kid. You're playing dad, and you're pretending to be in a family with a woman that y'all made an adult choice. We're not right for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we shook hands and we parted ways. She went and got pregnant. Happens. Love her to. I don't have an ill will, like an ounce of ill will in my heart for her. I want the best for her. But then you came and swooped back in and tried to fast forward your lives 3 or 4 or 5 years. See what I'm saying? Like this ends in a supernova at some point. Either you meet somebody, she meets somebody, and he cuts you out completely. The whole thing's and in loco parentis is a doctrine. It's not law, right? It's in place of the parent. It's I don't know. This whole thing feels like, man, it's about to get real messy.
Mm-hmm.
Am I crazy, or do you know?
I've been around. Sorry, go ahead.
Tell me I'm crazy. Be like, hey, you're an idiot. You don't actually know.
No, I mean, you're spot on with that, and that's really been my concern since the beginning on all this, but I've been in her life since before she was born. I mean, I drove in South Carolina when I was at work there. I'm part-time uniform and full-time federal contractor, so I was up there in South Carolina for work for a while, came down for her birth. I was here, so I'm dad to her, and in my eyes, she's my daughter, but we're having issues
but you're not.
trying to figure out the father situation in Georgia and all that.
I know, but you're not. And you're not with her mom.
Yeah, we try to make it work, but of course the values didn't align.
It's not going to work. Yeah. And so the man, you have one of the best hearts I've ever met.
Thank you.
But it's being applied in a way that is going to be so. It's just, I just don't see a way this plays out.
Yeah. And that's always been inking in the back of my heart, too, something that's really concerned me and really something that's added an extra strain and stress. And mean, my employer is now adding to that portion too by making my life harder here in the office by not accommodating me on certain things with taking care of her. When I get sick, she gets sick. Childcare, dropping off to daycare in the morning. So they're under the premise of, well, this is not your child. You don't have a responsibility. So
I mean,
you're taking off work these times and you don't have to.
I see their point. It's not your kid.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is, if you want to continue pretending she's your kid, you're going to have to find that's on you to find a place that's going to be flexible in that way. And it would be cool if they were just like, hey, you're a grown up, do whatever you want to do. I just don't. Or on the occasion, you want to take, like, I'm going to take my neighbor's kid in because my neighbor's kid's sick and my neighbor's got to work. Like, I'm just being a great neighbor, right? That's something. But all the time, man, that's tough.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's not a huge, like, it's not affecting my workplace performance any on this side currently, but it's just the whole dynamic of the situation, and they know about it. They know my past with the mother, and they kind of know the situation. They don't agree with that on their side, so they're not really accommodating anything on that end, which they have the right to do. And I know it's one of those things where I want what's best for the child at the end of the day. And it's one of those things that's heavy on my heart because I've waited so long to the point where I'm now attached, and now other issues are starting to span from it. And now it's like a decision factor has to be played when she's a year and a half. I mean, she won't know the difference right now. They'll just think of me as some guy who may not even know me years from now if I were to have that. But
I'll tell you this. I think I've talked about it on the show before. I think my son was 2.5 or 3. I have to go back and see. Maybe 4. I don't know. He's older than maybe 4. My wife was doing some consulting right outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil. So they paid for us to fly in. So my son and I just took like a 14-day trip. Maybe it's 12 days. We were just there forever. And it was just me and him hanging out, not catching, but like toucans were landing. And we were eating mangoes and avocados like off a tree, just in a yard. And it was amazing. Rode donkeys. He remembers 0. None. 0. And I thought, like, we made this super trip. None. 0. Yeah, he has no memory at all. And I tell you that, like, there will the biological, psychological, emotional, spiritual consequence. That machine is already emotion. Mm-hmm. Her dad left her, gone, disappeared. And I'll tell you this: he might show right back up, and he might not. Who knows?
Yeah.
But she's 1.5. Your ex-fiancée. I mean, like, let me just ask you a hard question, man. Like, why are you doing this? Is it because were you jealous that somebody else got her pregnant? Like, what brought you back into this?
It really wasn't that. It's more from, I guess, my past experiences really kind of went round circle, and I saw an opportunity for me to be in a child's life and make a huge difference on her mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Being there as dad, that's always been something that I wanted to do and wanted to have. And I thought this was a God thing to bring her back in my life. And maybe it was one of those deceitful things that I thought was a God thing, but it was a me thing, acting irrationally. And I knew the dynamic was going to be hard. I didn't expect myself to go through this amount of turmoil this early on. And it's not a mental turmoil of the stance of where I have an issue with the child or an issue with their mother. It's now like other things in my life was starting to get impacted by it when, I mean, in reality, it shouldn't be an issue, but it's just, they know it to be not what an example they think will be right for me to do and good for me. And they're looking out for me and they're making my life harder to try to almost force me into making a decision.
Well, I don't know that your employer's got that responsibility. That to me, that responsibility lays on my close friends and people who I've given permission, my mentors who I've given permission to hold me accountable for things.
Yeah,
right?
They've been treating me like a child a lot here, and that's really one reason I'm looking elsewhere as well. Because they've been limiting my growth potential on my age while those are the guys I work with.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in the organization 7 years. I'm 26, started here when I was 19. Mm-hmm. And all the guys I work with, my boss is about to retire. He's 62. Like, the average age is 46 and 50 in my organization. It's an Air Force command, so we're in charge of Air Force forces in the United States. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty good it's a pretty big responsibility and a big job, but I've demonstrated myself performance-wise. It's just, they don't agree with everything going on outside.
But leadership is more than performance. Leadership's also wisdom.
Yeah.
Leadership is wisdom. And there was nothing that made me more enraged when I was 26-year-old associate dean of students that thought I knew everything and people told me I wasn't ready yet. That phrase made me so enraged until I became the chief student affairs officer and I thought, oh my gosh, I was not ready. And the only perspective I had was 15 years later. Right? I can't imagine how infuriating that is to hear for me to say that. So let me just say, like, I get that, right? And there's going to be a whole spate of YouTube 26-year-olds who are like, I'm ready. Fine. Whatever. I'm not going to argue that. But here's what I always want to keep in mind. And this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but this is just how I choose to navigate the world, somewhat optimistically in an obnoxious way. Your bosses have a responsibility to maximize profits. They're a for-profit company, correct?
We're the Air Force, so not really, but yes.
So you're in the Air Force. Okay.
Well, I'm federal contracting here full-time. I'm part-time uniform, Air National Guard, but I've been a contractor down here in Florida for several years.
So is it a civilian contract?
Yeah, civilian contract.
Okay. Their job is to what? Make money, right?
Yep.
Yes. They are going to put the people in the position that's going to help them best make the most money. Now, there's politics in every job. There's people who are idiots and have stupid egos and all that stuff. I know that exists. But I tend to operate just because it cleans my life up. If they don't promote me, it's because they thought I wasn't the person that would maximize the culture here, that would maximize profit here, that would maximize customer relations here. And if it's nefarious or I think I'm the right guy, then I'm going to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And I've been doing that since October. I've been looking around, applying. Okay. It's one of those frustration points where I've been through multiple job opportunities, multiple things, but I have a very niche field, and it's hard to translate on the outside. And I get very far into the interview process, which is frustrating when like halfway to 3/4 of the way to even go into our final interview on site, and then I don't get it at that point. So it's been several jobs that's happened too.
Here's what I think you could really benefit from. I think you need to call a licensed mental health professional, and not because you have a mental health disorder. I don't hear that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think getting somebody that is a neutral third party that you're exchanging payment, like you would a plumber, sitting down with somebody and saying, here are some choices I'm making. Here's some frustrations and challenges I'm running into. And let them hold up a mirror next to you because they care about you and they're professionals, right? You're paying them.
Yeah.
And say, here's what I see. Because here's what I see, Connor. I see somebody who is adjacent to the military, in it a little bit, but adjacent to it. So you're in a limbo world. You're connected to it, but through a civilian route. And that means you are kind of hierarchical, but you got stuck in this other lane over here too. And man, you loved this girl with all your heart. And then y'all sat down and made one of the hardest adult decisions you're ever going to make, which is I love you and I probably always will love you, but that doesn't mean we're right for each other. And y'all split up. And then somebody else got your ex-fiancée pregnant, which would make any of us just mad with every emotion possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you decided to try to. You're not even playing house. You're playing divorce, which is the strangest game I've ever seen. Right?
Yeah.
You're playing divorce.
Odd dynamic.
And if I'm never gonna tell I'm never gonna tell somebody who's like God's calling me. I'm never gonna. Fine. Like he didn't call me, hadn't talked to me like that, but I'm not gonna tell you that he didn't. As an outsider, it looks like you are seeing a potential good deed, and you are so desperate to become the hero in this story that you are wallpapering over common sense and you're wallpapering over responsibilities and accountability and just trying to make it all right. And when I do that, I run the risk of really, with my good intentions and my good heart, causing a huge mess. If you care and love about this girl, there's nothing to stop you from, if you want to, starting your own 529 account for her to go to college, or creating some, like there's all kinds of ways to participate without pretending to be an the whole thing's just confusing and messy. That's why I think it's great for you to sit down with an adult, with a licensed professional and say, I've dug myself quite the hole. Super frustrated at work. They keep overlooking me. I'm 26 years old. I don't know why, but clearly they're not doing it because they think it's fun. They're leaning on me and pressuring me. And I feel it's very, very personal. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. And man, I created a quagmire with a beautiful 1.5-year-old little girl who I love very much, but that I have absolutely no connection to a relationship whatsoever, other than I used to date her mom. And now I'm in a mess. I need some help. And Connor, on Friday of last week, I went and sat with a counselor for 2 hours. The person who I think is one of the best in, I'd put her up against most anybody in the United States. And I said, I'm in a mess. I need some help. And it was an uncomfortable 2 hours, but I got a tiny little flashlight of hope on the back end of this thing. You're a good guy with a great heart. Just need someone to help you clarify some of the chaos and some of the mess. Okay? There's a sunk cost fallacy. It's common in business. When somebody starts a business and they put $500,000 into it and the business starts failing, they immediately want to say, okay, well, I'm going to put another 100,000, another 100,000 in it. Because I've already put 500, so what's 600? And I've already put 600, so what's 800? And it's really easy to do that relationally too. I've already been with this girl for 1.5 years, this little baby. What's another 16.5 years? I've already, the great surgeons and the great, physicians of our time know when to say, okay, we don't know what's happening, but nobody's getting well. Let's stop. Let's just stop and assess the damage, and then we'll make a new decision. And that's what I think you got to do. You got to stop at the sunk cost fallacy. You just got to pause, take a breath, and look at this from 30,000 feet with somebody else by your side. I'll be here every step of the way, my brother, as you sort this thing out. Holler anytime, but make that phone call today and get yourself a professional counselor that you can talk to in your area. It's going to help you light the path out of here.